Have you ever smiled at the world while screaming inside? Have you ever laughed at a joke, nodded in agreement, played the part perfectly? All while your heart felt like it was breaking apart piece by piece. The truth is, it's not because you're weak. It's because you've been strong for too long. Because you've carried the weight of pretending, of holding it together, of wearing that mask. So well that even you forgot what it feels like to be seen without it. Can I ask you something? When was the last time you let yourself fall apart without guilt, no distractions, no performance, no armor? If you're tired of running from yourself, if you're ready to stop fighting a war inside, stay here with me, because what you're about to hear, it might just be the beginning of your way home. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll stay until the end. Alex always knew how to smile. He learned early that people liked him more that way. That a smile could smooth over tension, could hide the storm raging inside. As a boy growing up in the suburbs of New York in a small house with peeling paint and too much silence, he became the master of masks. When his parents argued, he smiled at his little sister to reassure her. When his father left, he smiled at his mother so she wouldn't cry harder. When he felt invisible at school, he smiled at the teachers, hoping to be seen. That mask became his refuge, his protection, his way of surviving in a world that felt too sharp, too cold. But what happens when the mask fits so tightly that you forget it's there? What happens when it fuses with your skin, when it no longer feels like something you wear, but something you are? Alex didn't think about that. He was too busy being the dependable son, the helpful colleague, the friend who always said yes. He was the one who remembered birthdays, who stayed late to help, who never complained. Everyone admired him. No one saw him. His mask was flawless. At parties, he was the funny one. At work, the reliable one. In relationships, the supportive one. But inside, there was a boy who had never stopped aching. A boy who longed to be held without having to earn it. A boy who wondered if love could exist without conditions. At night, Alex would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling and feel the weight of that mask pressing down on him. He would think about how tired he was, how much he wished someone would notice the cracks forming in his smile, how much he wished he could just rest. But he didn't know how. The mask had become him, and yet there was a part of him, small and quiet, that hadn't given up, a part that whispered, what if you took it off? What if you let them see? What if? For once, you let yourself be real, and that question, it stayed with him, like a seed planted deep, waiting for the day he'd have the courage to let it grow. Have you ever felt the moment your mask cracked, the moment the world saw a glimpse of the storm inside you? For Alex, that moment came on a cold autumn afternoon. He was sitting across from someone he thought would stay, someone he believed saw past the mask. But as the words fell from her lips, the world around him blurred. "I can't do this anymore," she said. And just like that, the carefully built illusion of being enough shattered. He nodded, he smiled, the mask held just barely. But inside, everything was collapsing. The coffee shop felt too loud. The people felt too close. His heart raced, his breath caught in his throat. He wanted to scream, to beg her to take it back. But all he could do was sit there, frozen in the role he had mastered, the strong one, the understanding one, the one who always made it easy for others to leave. That night, Alex walked the city streets until his legs ached. The lights blurred into tears he refused to let fall. His phone buzzed with messages he ignored. His chest ached with a hollow kind of pain, the kind that comes when you realize you were invisible in the place you tried hardest to be seen. And as he stood on a bridge, watching the river move beneath him, he felt the first real crack in the mask. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. A soft breaking. A whisper inside that said, "This hurts too much to hide." For the first time, Alex admitted to himself that he was okay. And that quiet admission felt like both an ending and a beginning, like the first step towards something he didn't yet understand. Like standing at the edge of a truth he was finally ready to face. If you've ever felt that moment, that quiet breaking, you are not alone, and Maybe that's where healing begins. Silence became Alex's closest companion. After that day, after the quiet breaking, he moved through the world like a ghost. At work, he answered emails, joined meetings, nodded at jokes he didn't hear. At home, he sat in the dark, staring at nothing. The city roared around him, but inside, only silence. He walked through crowds on Fifth Avenue surrounded by voices, laughter, footsteps. But it all felt distant, like watching life through a thick pane of glass. He wanted to speak, to tell someone, anyone, that he was unraveling, but the words wouldn't come. The mask had taught him too well: keep it together, don't be a burden, smile and no one will ask questions. So he did. Day after day, he smiled. He kept the mask in place even as the cracks spread beneath it. Nights were the hardest. Alone in his apartment with only the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sirens for company, the silence felt heavy. It pressed on his chest, tighter and tighter. He tried to fill it: music, movies, scrolling through endless feeds. But nothing reached him. Nothing soothed the ache of feeling unseen. The weight of silence was not just the absence of sound. It was the absence of being known. And as the days blurred, Alex began to realize the mask wasn't protecting him anymore. It was isolating him. It wasn't keeping him safe. It was keeping him alone, and that thought, that truth, was more frightening than the pain he tried so hard to hide. There was a night long after midnight when he sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker. And for the first time he wondered, what if the silence isn't the enemy? What if it's the space where I finally hear myself? And in that wondering, something softened, something shifted. The silence was still there, but now it held a question. And maybe, just maybe, an invitation. The breaking point didn't come with a scream. It came with a whisper Alex couldn't ignore. It was the morning he lost his job. The news came in a meeting that lasted 5 minutes but felt like a lifetime. Budget cuts, restructuring, we're sorry. He sat there, mask intact, nodding, thanking them for the opportunity. But inside, the world he'd built on being reliable, on being valuable, crumbled. He walked out into the cold, the city rushing around him, people with places to go, things to do. And he stood still, like a man caught between two worlds, the one where he pretended, and the one where he could no longer pretend. That day, the mask didn't just crack, it splintered. Grief came in waves: anger, shame, fear. But beneath it all was something deeper, a raw, aching honesty. I can't do this anymore. That night, alone in his apartment, he let it all out. The tears he'd held back for years, the rage at himself for always trying to be perfect, the sorrow of realizing how lost he felt. And as the storm of emotion passed, something unexpected remained, a quiet, not the heavy silence of before, but a stillness that felt like truth. He saw, maybe for the first time, that the pain he'd run from wasn't the enemy. It was his own voice, begging to be heard. The mask had hidden it for so long, and now, without the mask, he could finally listen. If you've ever felt that breaking, that raw, terrifying honesty, you know it's not the end. It's the place where something new begins. So if this speaks to you, if you've ever reached that place, I invite you to share. Just say, I'm listening. And let that be your first step back to yourself. Memories have a way of rising when we least expect them. After the storm of losing his job, after the tears and the stillness, Alex found himself thinking of the boy he used to be. The boy who once believed love was simple, who once believed love was safe. He saw himself at 7, sitting on the steps of his childhood home, small hands clenched, listening to his parents argue behind the door. The boy who promised himself, if I'm good, maybe they'll stop. If I'm quiet, maybe they'll stay. If I'm helpful, maybe I won't be left behind. That boy learned early that love could be taken away. That approval had to be earned. That feelings were dangerous because they might make people leave. Alex had forgotten that boy, buried him beneath years of achievement, of pleasing, of performing. But now, in the quiet, the boy returned, and with him came a flood of understanding. The mask wasn't just something Alex chose. It was something he built to protect that boy, to shield him from a world that felt too uncertain, too painful. He saw the moments that shaped him: his father's suitcase by the door, his mother's silence at the dinner table, the nights he lay awake, listening for footsteps that never came, and he realized. The mask wasn't the enemy, it was the armor that kept him safe when he had no other choice. But now he had a choice. The boy didn't need to hide anymore. Alex could see him, hold him, tell him, "You were never too much, you were always enough." And in that moment, something inside Alex softened. A tenderness he hadn't felt in years, the kind that says, "You can come home now," the kind that says, "You don't have to earn it," the kind that begins to heal what was broken so long ago. It's easy to believe the parts of us we hide are the parts that make us unworthy. Alex had believed that for most of his life. The sadness he buried, the anger he swallowed, the need he tried so hard to erase, all of it felt like proof that something in him was broken. But in the quiet after remembering the boy he used to be, he started to see it differently. He remembered something he'd once read, Carl Jung's words: "The shadow is not evil, it's simply the part of us we refuse to see." Alex began to understand that what he had called weakness was just pain unspoken, that what he had called failure was just fear unmet. He pictured it like a locked room inside himself, a room he'd avoided for so long that he forgot what was inside. But now, with the mask cracked and the boy remembered, he found the courage to open the door. Inside wasn't a monster. Inside was a boy who wanted to be loved, a boy who didn't need to be perfect, a boy who was tired of hiding. The shadow wasn't the enemy. It was the part of him that longed to come home, the part that had always been waiting. And with that seeing came a strange kind of peace, not because the pain was gone, but because it no longer had to be hidden, because it no longer had to be fought. The truth was simple: he wasn't broken, he was human. And that truth, soft and steady, began to light the way forward. The mask hadn't protected him, it had kept him apart. But now he could choose differently. And that choice felt like hope. That choice felt like the first real breath he'd taken in years. The hardest battles are the ones we fight within ourselves. For Alex, the nights became a battleground, nights when the city quieted and there was nothing left to distract him, nights when the old patterns called to him. Just put the mask back on, just smile, just go back to what you know. But he couldn't, not anymore. The war inside him was loud. Part of him wanted to retreat, to numb the pain, to disappear into the comfort of pretending. But another part, fragile but fierce, whispered, "Stay, stay with the sadness, stay with the fear, stay with the truth." And so he did. One night he sat by the window, knees drawn to his chest, watching the city lights flicker against the dark. The tears came unstoppable, as if every ache he'd buried demanded to be seen. He let himself cry, really cry. The kind of tears that leave you empty and full at the same time. The kind that wash away what no longer serves you. And when the storm passed, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: relief, not because the pain was gone, but because he wasn't running from it anymore. He was no longer at war with himself. He was no longer trying to be unbreakable. He was learning, slowly, painfully, to be unafraid of breaking. And in that breaking, in that surrender, he found strength. Not the strength of armor, but the strength of truth, the strength of finally belonging to himself, the strength of knowing that he could feel it all and still survive. And as dawn broke, casting soft light across his face, Alex knew this was not the end. This was the beginning of coming home. Healing isn't a moment. It's 1,000 small choices. And for Alex, it began with one: the choice to stop hiding. The choice to show up, not as the version he thought people wanted, but as himself. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't easy, it was quiet, it was slow. It was the day he told a friend, "I'm not okay," and let the silence hang instead of filling it with a joke. It was the afternoon he said no to something that didn't feel right, even though it scared him. It was the morning he looked in the mirror and didn't rush to fix what he saw. Each choice was like removing a piece of the mask, and beneath it he found a face he hadn't really seen before, a face that didn't need to be perfect, a face that could be tired or sad or unsure and still be worthy of love. The more he showed up as himself, The more he saw that the people who mattered didn't want the mask, they wanted him, the real him. And the people who only loved the mask, he could let them go. Slowly, life began to feel different, not easier, not painless, but more real, more honest, more free. He started to laugh, not because he should, but because he felt it. He started to speak, not to please, but to connect. He started to see that being seen didn't have to be dangerous. It could be the thing that set him free. And every time he chose truth over pretense, something in him healed a little more. The boy who once felt he had to earn love began to believe he could simply receive it. And that belief was where a new kind of life began. A life where he belonged not because of the mask, but because of the man beneath it. A life where he didn't have to perform to be worthy. A life where, for the first time, he felt truly home. There came a day when Alex faced what once would have broken him. A moment that would have sent him running back to the mask. He had opened his heart to someone new. He had dared to be seen. And still, they chose to leave. The old fear whispered, "See, you're not enough." The old urge tugged, "Hide, protect yourself, go back to what you know." But this time Alex didn't. He felt the sting of rejection. He felt the ache of loss, and he stayed. He breathed through it. He let the pain move through him without letting it define him. Because he knew now that his worth wasn't in someone else's hands. He didn't need their approval to belong. He didn't need their love to be whole. The boy who once believed love had to be earned now understood a deeper truth. Real love, the kind that heals instead of harms, starts from within. And when it lives inside you, no one can take it away. He walked through the city that day with his head high, not because he was unhurt, but because he was unashamed. He could grieve without collapsing. He could lose without losing himself. And in that strength, quiet and steady, he found freedom. Freedom from the endless striving, freedom from the need to prove, freedom from the fear that had kept him small. The world hadn't changed. People would still come and go, challenges would still rise, but Alex had changed. And that change meant he could meet the world as he was, no mask, no armor, just himself. And for the first time, that felt like enough. Thank you for staying with this story, for walking this path beside him. I hope it reminds you that you too are enough. Just as you are home, it wasn't a place Alex found on a map. It wasn't a door he unlocked or a key he carried in his pocket. Home was the moment he stopped running. The moment he chose to stand in his truth, no matter how messy, no matter how raw. It was the quiet morning when he looked in the mirror and didn't flinch at his own reflection. No mask, no performance. Just a man who had faced himself and lived to tell the story. He smiled then. Not the practiced smile he'd worn for the world, but a smile that came from somewhere deeper. A smile that said, "I see you, I'm with you, I'm proud of you." The city still rushed outside, the world still demanded, still challenged. But inside, Alex felt steady, whole, at peace. The war was over. The boy who had once felt invisible was no longer hiding. The man who had once chased approval had found something better, himself. And in finding himself, he had come home. So now I invite you. If this journey speaks to you, if some part of you is ready to stop running, to stop performing, to stop earning what you already are, say it with me, "I am home." Say it in the comments, say it in your heart, say it to the mirror, "I am home." And let that be the beginning of living not for the world's approval but for your own truth, the beginning of a life where you belong to yourself, the beginning of everything real. The beginning of freedom. Because when you are home within yourself, nothing and no one can ever take that from you again.